Hello and welcome to the MHG podcast. Once again, look, life can be miserable. It's bleak out there and we're here to bring you a little bit of light, a little bit of joy. I'm Bradley, once again joined by Stu. How are we doing this week, Stu?
I'm pretty good. I had a tough week in work last week and the week before. And for the last 6 years now, I'm only kidding. So, yeah, that was tough. But it's got a bit better now. So, yeah, I've had a better week. Cheers.
Good. I'm glad. I know you said you want to talk about it maybe another time, maybe when it's all settled down a bit and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Maybe, I hate saying look forward to it because that's sometimes the wrong word, but you know what I mean.
I do.
We look forward to that.
Yeah.
We look forward to hearing about your misery.
I was going to say, you want to revel in my misery, really, don't you?
Well, it makes a change from having to sort of like listen to mine.
Yeah, true.
But talking of bleak, and why I'm glad we're recording the podcast today, I watched the Ryan Hollinger video. Are you aware of who Ryan Hollinger is?
No, it rings a vague bell, but no, I'm not sure.
He critiques horror movies on YouTube. Irish guy, really good. He picks up like the well-known horror movies and like obscure ones and gives them a really good critique. But last night he popped up and went, "Oh, there's a Ryan Hollinger video. I've not watched one for a while." And I remembered, it was on there. It's probably one of the bleakest films ever made. That I don't care if you're Patch Adams. I don't care if you're Pee Wee Herman and, you're the happiest people alive. It will make you miserable. Can you guess what that film could be?
Oh, Martyrs?
No. No, oh God, no, it makes Martyrs look like a walk in the park.
Oh, a Serbian story, Serbian tale?
No, again, kids' films. It was Threads.
Oh, God. Yeah.
But anyone who hasn't seen Threads, it was 1984 it released, I want to say.
Yeah, I think so.
Originally. I was shown it in school. I was in, I want to say junior school. It must have been secondary school. No junior school teacher is insane enough to show Threads to a bunch of, like, pre-teens, surely. So I'm going to say senior school. I watched this and... it terrified the living daylights out of me in the 90s. God knows what it was like for anyone watching it in the mid-80s during the height of the Cold War. But essentially, it's a documentary-style film set in Sheffield during the height of the Cold War when the bombs actually go off. And it's... It starts off and it's just this like everyone running about their lives. It talks about the poverty under a Conservative government. Nothing like today.
No, totally different.
Yeah, totally different. The poor and the working class, are looked down upon and they live in squalor and everything. But going on around the outside of them, and it's not, they're not big on it or anything. They're just getting on with their daily lives. It's the threat of Cold War, a war between nations with unstable leaders. Again, nothing like today. And essentially the bombs go off. And it's about those who survive and how they survive. One of the main character in it, she's pregnant, and then she has her baby, and then everyone dies around her at some point of radiation poisoning and stuff. And like, her baby grows up, it becomes 10, and then there's rape and stuff like that. And the 10-year-old gets a bit older and ends up having a baby during the post-apocalypse with radiation poisoning, and it's a lovely ending to a film with a nice happy ending. It is the bleakest film I've ever watched, but it's a stark warning as to what could happen. And it's like watching Ryan Hollinger's critique of it. Just went, oh God, I remember this film. Oh God, no matter how bad your life is, it's never your radiation poisoned baby grows up to have her own radiation poisoned baby bad.
I know. It is the most, for me, it is the most bleak ever made, or certainly that I've ever seen, because it could be real. It's that realism and the fact that it could be your future, and it's not an exaggeration, even though it's sci-fi effectively. It's not an exaggeration. If anything, these days, it's probably less impact than it would be. So pretty rough, and it's one of those that you would not revisit very frequently. I think once every 10, 15, or maybe even 20 years would probably be about the scale. I would recommend people watch it if they've got a strong stomach though, and they don't. I mean, it's not.
Oh God, yeah, they don't hide stuff.
They don't.
In that?
No, it's very realistic in kind of, you know, like, well, spoiler warning and also content warning here for the next sort of minute or so. But it has things like suppurating wounds and lots of dead bodies, and you know, it doesn't show people exploding as such, but it shows the aftermath in all of its griminess. It does it in that way that kind of British films tend to excel at, if you want to call it excelling. But yeah, no, it's almost like social realism and social commentary alongside sci-fi, and there are a few films like that from Russia that's like Stalker, you know, which is obviously there's the game which is heavily inspired by that. There's one called Dead Man's Letters, which is very similar in that way. Yeah. There's also the British When the Wind Blows, and there's a few other, but I think for me it stands above them all. And yeah, if you can stomach the content, then it's definitely worth watching. But do it on a happy day and prepare to have that day ruined. But don't do it on a sad day, because, you know, prepare to like throw yourself off a bridge.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I mean, to give you an idea of how grim and miserable it is, it's like Ken Loach decided to rewatch Kes over and over and over and over and over, and was on a bad day anyway, and then decided to make Threads. It's not a Ken Loach film. No. So, it's, you know, it makes Ken Loach look like a happy soul with some of his films.
Yeah. Crazy as that seems. But yeah, no, it is genuinely well done. And it's strange. It's got a weird atmosphere. It taps into something that, I don't know. I think, is it because it's done in a kind of verite style. It's done like photojournalism. It feels very real.
Yeah. BBC have been good at that. You know, it's like, if you look back, like I think the other classic horror film, because that's what Threads is, it's a horror film at the end of the day, just not what you would call a Hollywood horror film. Yeah. But Ghostwatch is another one, which I thought was really well done, presented as an actual TV show that was like actually going out, you know, Ghostwatch, and it was just, and the way they presented that and turned that into, you know, it's campy now by today's standards, but at the time it was our War of the Worlds. It was crazy that the BBC put that out.
Oh, I know, absolutely. Absolutely is. And they did a few like that were as bleak as hell that they just don't touch anymore. They don't go near trying to do that anymore on the Beeb, which is a shame. There is one that they did called Edge of Darkness as well in the 80s, and it had Bob Peck in it, who's from, you might remember him from Jurassic Park. He's the hunter guy, clever girls, that guy. And that's really dark as well in lots and lots and lots of ways, and very much worth watching. I suppose we're a games podcast and we've been talking about films for 20 minutes, so we probably better move on.
Well, all this was to set up. Are you ready?
Go on.
Do you know what else is as bleak as Ken Loach using his Universal credit, his PIP, his job and everything all at once?
What's that?
The AAA video game market, Stu.
Oh, you know, you bang on there.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. Oh, that's one hell of a setup. What, we 10 minutes in for a segue? That's impressive even for me.
Not bad. I'm impressed.
I know. What you been playing, Stu? Tell me it's not AAA end of the world stuff. Like Marvel's Avengers.
Oh, yeah, God, all of it is so weird. Especially Square, where Square Enix are going with their stuff. You know, they've cancelled 4 games or something just this year. Mental. But
I was going to talk. So before you go, I was going to talk about 2 games this week. There's so much happening in the games industry that I'm going to talk about 1 game today myself, and then I'm gonna move on to some JKR stuff, some Square Enix stuff, and some discourse around retro video games. So this could be fun. What you been playing, Stu? Give us a panic cleanser.
All right. Well, we'll have to be brief on each one then, because that's a lot. But yeah, no, I've been playing Grid Force, or full title Grid Force Mask of the Goddess, which is a weird kind of actioner.
Sorry, I feel sorry for Gridfalls having to follow a discussion about threads, by the way.
I know. There'll be show notes, so people will just be like, skip that depressing crap. Let's get to the game. But it's a funny one, like an action-y RPG, and it's grid-based, as the title sort of suggest. But yeah, it's kind of... it's like a bit of a shooter kind of thing. It's really strange. So you have this grid. You can move on a grid, and the enemy can move on a grid. And depending on where you are, depends on how well your attacks do. And there are short ones that come out quickly, and there are big ones that take time to come out, and they can move on from that grid. Although some attacks will target grids, and etc. etc. You move around very fast. It's kind of styling itself a little bit over after a shoot 'em up, or maybe a puzzle game, or a hybrid of the two. It's got so far a strong story. I've only played it for a couple of hours, but it's got a strong story. It's like brings you into sort of a mystery of all of these kind of like deities who are warring with one another, or at least seem to be at odds over this infinitely repeating cycle of time that you're stuck in this loop of, but are a newcomer to because your memory isn't there. At least that's what I think it is. I'm trying to keep up with it. The kind of cutscenes that are done are in like comic book panels, which are really good and really nicely done. It allows them to switch up styles as well. They can do it in a kind of more traditional fantasy style, or they can do it in a very silly, like childish style to represent different emotions and stuff like that. And yeah, the dialogue's not bad at all. It's quite good and fairly intriguing. Not sold on the combat yet. It might develop. But at the moment, it's kind of like, I see what you're doing. You want to make it so that you have the growth of an RPG, so you can develop your character and their stats, and you can buy into certain weapons and certain abilities and magics. But the actual moment-to-moment combat's not very exciting. It doesn't have much of a connect or a punch. The thing with RPGs is that the ones that I think work the best are the ones that when you're using RNG, so random number generation, so you can do one hit and sometimes it'll do a high amount of damage, sometimes it won't because it's random. That feeling when you hit hard with it and you get a really big impact from what you do, and when you go on in the game and become more accomplished, the frequency of that can improve if you put enough into it, kind of thing. It doesn't have that, or it certainly hasn't so far. It's like each attack does what it does, like a shooter. And so the blend of the two isn't really clicking. But it's okay, and it looks nice, and it's interesting. So I'm going to carry on with it for a bit. But I think unless it turns around with the moment-to-moment fighting, it's going to be a bit of a tough sell for me.
Yeah. Now, I could have taken this one. This was one we got on a code. Now, the reason I didn't take it is I'm playing, or I have a game that I'm working through just for myself, not for reviews or anything, called End Cycle Versus, which is it's a card battler, but it is, I suppose, in a way. But it has that grid type thing where you've got, on this one, generally like 3 rows that you can move across, and the damage you do allows you to take territory, etc., and stuff like that. And it felt just a bit too similar to that, even though it's a different genre, because it's more of a shooter than a card battler. I mean, this is like End Cycle Versus. It is a card battler, but it's real time, so you kind of pick your cards as you're moving, trying to shoot at the same time. It was just a bit too similar to that, and I can't play 2 identical games at the same time, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I passed it to you because I thought, right, it's not a card battle, so Stu might get on well with it, better than I might at the time. And it's kind of got the things like the RPG. That's been a real put off for me when I see RPG now as something in a game that's not a direct RPG. That's like on the negative column for me these days. I don't know why.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, can't you find a way of levelling up my character, please? I don't kind of want to.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's funny, isn't it? Because, there's so many different options, so many different games coming out. And you know that, studios have to try something new to stand out in the market.
Yeah.
Which is great, it pushes innovation forward. But, it can also mean that they pick on something that hasn't been done very often. Because obviously they want to try something comparatively new. But the reason that it hasn't caught on is because it's not very good and you can't really turn it into a game. But I always appreciate the effort. I would love it if I carry on playing and they turn a corner and they get it really right. And the thing is, as it stands at the moment, and this is the last thing I'll say and then we'll move on. As it stands at the moment, I think it would be very, very simple to tweak so that it would work. You need more random elements. That's what you need, because RPGs depend on random elements. And I would have it that you had like a third option, like a third wheel, like a third weapon, like a third magic, something like that. It has a cooldown and it has both a random effect and random impact on the other grid, and throw that into the mix. And then where it sends the enemy after you've used it on the grid can then be played into with what your character does. But that's just like something that I've just thought of now, and I think it would make a really big difference. And that's the kind of thing that comes with a lot of playtesting, and a lot of playtesting and development costs a lot of money, and that's probably why we're not there with it. But anyway, I'm glad that they're trying something new. I'll keep with it, and I'll report back and see what I think of it.
Yeah, no, totally with you on that. Again, this is like, the RPG thing's a me thing. I know for every one of me, there's probably 5 people who love the RPG elements. It's like, for every one person like you, Stu, who's not a big fan of the roguelike, there's 5-10 people like me who go, bring me the roguelike. So, not every game has to be for everyone, and we've always stated that. If you don't like something, it doesn't make it a bad game, it just makes it not a game for you. There are bad games. This is clearly not a bad game. It's, everything. It's still on my wish list. It's one that, I think when it drops to, maybe 75% off, I'll take a chance on it. But it's not one for me, and it sounds like it's got a little bit of work to do to get maybe just up to the standard it needs to be at to really hit the mark.
Yeah, we're in such a funny space because there's so many games. There's just the market is flooded, and you do need to stand. Like when I was a kid, it was like there would be 5 games out in a month, and that would be it. Available on the shelves, and obviously no online ordering, and it would be like if this game was one of those 5, it would sell quite well, and people would be like, oh yeah, it does something different. Well, hey, thank God. Yeah. Whereas now it's like, even though it is different, there are still games like it, and it's not at the top of the pile of that so far. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, it's a challenging place to be.
And what's that word where you say something ahead of time that's going to look to what you're going to say later? What's that word?
Prescient?
No, you're saying something as a clue for later.
A hint?
Yeah, okay, we're hinting towards what might come later. But, hey, it's a single-player game, Stu, and you know what? Even if they give up on development of it and give up on the game and move on to something else, you can still play it in the future.
This is true.
Yeah, I don't know what that could lead to, No.
God, where are we going with that?
I know. No, it's just an offhand comment, Stu.
Yeah. No intent behind it.
Yeah. No, none at all. So, moving on. I'll say, still fresh. I'll say fresh off my 100-hour epic journey on Persona 5 Royal. I've decided to jump back into another Persona. Not Persona 4, because that's a bit too long for me again at the moment, and I've played it fairly recently, a few years ago. But I've decided to jump back into Persona 3 Portable.
Nice.
Now, in terms of what some people might understand, the Persona series is actually people will correct me on this because I'm not going to get it perfect, but it's a spin-off from the Shin Megami Tensei series, which I believe was also a spin-off of something else. Can't quite remember. But then you've got the other... There's tons of different spin-offs of Shin Megami Tensei. And Persona's one of them, and it's probably the most popular of all of them. Now, most people jumped in on Persona, probably Persona 4, and specifically Persona 4 Golden, which would be the Final Fantasy 7 of the Persona series, if you was going to do that, where most people jumped on.
Okay.
Persona 3 is probably the Final Fantasy 6. You know, those who jumped on then were probably just a bit ahead of everyone else before it became really popular. And then just, Persona 5 is a 100-hour slog that's well worth playing. It's wonderful. Hence the reason it was one of my games of the year last year. Anyway, Persona 3 Portable is 30 to 40 hours long at most. It's basically the length for this game is the intro Persona 5. And it's the usual Persona thing. You play a student who ends up in like care to a degree at a new place, like family care and stuff like that. He's had to move there, or they've had to move there in this case for whatever reason. Again, I don't want to spoil anything to do with story because Persona games are all about the story. You go there, stuff happens, blah, 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 supernatural stuff happens, there's a velvet room, you go into a velvet room, you get given, this has got to happen to you, this is all happening now that you've arrived, and you kind of got to uncover the truth, and then you learn about, you can get Persona, you then have to do a bunch of dungeon crawling, story unravels, etc., etc., etc. You must manage your social status, take on jobs, live a school life, all that kind of thing that's synonymous with Persona. Now, there's got all the dungeon crawling stuff, and you kind of, with this one, it's combat's a bit differently to Persona 5 and Persona 4, which is why I kind of went back to this one rather than Persona 4 after playing Persona 5. And it's like, there's more direct control stuff, so you kind of control sort of everyone a bit more during your dungeon crawling. So it feels like there's actually less, for me, individual control on the on each individual battle. So you kind of like, you've got to work everyone as a group a bit more than you could in Persona 5. I can't get that to make sense. It's just a slightly different feel to Persona 5 that makes it feel like a completely different game.
Just a different dynamic kind of thing with the group.
Yeah, it's essentially the same structure, but it feels different, and I can't quite explain why. ADHD. It's great having to get out clause and stuff like that.
Yep.
But it's got honestly everything that you expect in a Persona game is there. This one you could have a male or female character, which is something they've not done since, which I find particularly strange. Some of the stuff in this hasn't aged greatly, but not to any major issues or anything like that. It's a bit of its time with certain aspects. Persona 4's actually aged a lot worse with some of the homophobia. It's not homophobic, but the attitudes towards homosexuals in it is a bit questionable in Persona 4. This has got some elements, nothing major. I don't think there's any trigger warnings or anything that need to go on it. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I reckon I'm about 10 hours in. It moves at a lovely pace. And you could tell this was made for a different time because this was made to be played and enjoyed, not to get the most out of it you can. Persona 5, I think, took a risk with how long it was. This is concise. This is, this is just, it's really well done. I'm enjoying my time with it. The characters, I would say, don't stand out as much as the games after that, but still really good characters, really good dynamic, really good story. Everything about it is excellent. But we can see how much the series has moved on in terms of mechanics and stuff. That's definitely something that has improved over the years. But it's not like going back to some old games where you kind of play, I don't know, let's say a modern Resident Evil. You go back to the first Resident Evil or the first Silent Hill, and you could go, oh, yeah, that's a bit rough how that plays. It's nothing like that. And yeah, I highly recommend if you're into Persona series. Honestly, it's fantastic. If you have never played a Persona game, honestly, this is the best jumping on point. It is the best one to jump on. It's the shortest of all the modern games, and it's the most accessible, I would say. So yeah, give this one a go if you've never played. If you've never played Persona 3, definitely give it a go. If you've played Persona 3, go back. It's great. Remember it.
Yeah, very nice. I'm not sure if it's like, well, let me put it a different way. I never really got on with Kingdom Hearts. I'd really tried, but I enjoyed Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep on the PSP.
Yeah. And
that was a much more it was a slightly more action focused. There was fewer breakups into cutscenes, less plot, much more sort of action focused and a bit short, or quite a bit shorter, probably 20 hours shorter. Is this the same as that? In that it takes the formula and tweaks it so that it's focused more on being a portable, speedy experience.
The opposite, in fact, I'd say they've tweaked it after this to be a bigger experience. Obviously, this came first. But yeah, you mentioned the Birth by Sleep. That is the only Kingdom Hearts game I've completed.
You see?
So yeah, and yeah, like you, I want to like Kingdom Hearts. I do like Kingdom Hearts, but I don't think I've even made it 50% of the way through any of them, apart from Birth by Sleep.
Yeah, same with me.
But yeah, like this definitely feels like if you was making today a portable version of Persona based off the success of Persona 5, this is still what you would make. It's streamlined, but it's not streamlined. Again, I can't think of the right word. It feels like a streamlined experience compared to what we've been playing of late, and it works because of it. Still some like funky bits in there that they could have reworked. I get why they haven't, because it's not a remaster, then it's a remake. But yeah. Also, one thing it reminded me about is the controversy around the game when it came out. So each one has a different way of calling your personas. I can't remember what 4's was specifically, but on 5 they take off their mask, and that brings the persona about. In this one, they had like these guns, like magical guns, that they put to their temple and shot, and that would cause the persona to come out of them. And when this originally released, there was some school shootings in America. And yeah, it did not go down too well with, especially, Fox, shall we say, Fox News and the likes.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's, you could tell, they said, this could cause children to go and start trying to kill them. No, it was never going to happen. It wasn't a popular enough game to start with. But you kind of look around the hysteria of media that even a game like this can cause. It was just bizarre at the time. I get why some people go into a panic. Don't get me wrong. If you're a parent of someone who's been, like, their children have been at the end of a school shooting, whether they've survived or not, I get you might see something like this and panic and not like it and be against it. But this became a bit of a media scapegoat as well, which was a shame and possibly dented its popularity for a little bit. But honestly, it's a brilliant game. And yeah, try it, play it, get it.
Yeah.
Play it portably on your deck.
Yeah, I might well do that.
It's only 15 quid as well, I think. It's like ridiculously cheap.
Yeah, that is good. I kind of see, the problem with the suicidal imagery. Like, there's a real difficulty with kind of separating adult games from children playing games, and there's not very many games that require that kids don't play them, because violence doesn't really, it's not going to turn kids violent, and it's so cartoonish. I don't think it's going to desensitize them. But it's sort of strange strange things, odd things about taboos can still be influential. Now, I'm not prudish at all about that sort of a thing. You know, I'm like, you know, every adult should have the right to choose if it's fiction. You know, it's fiction, so you know, it's fine. Yeah. But it's just, what happens when there are kids in the mix and parents just going, yeah, go on, you play that, no problem. That said, should it not exist because of that? No, not at all. I think also nowadays, unfortunately, school shootings are so common that alone probably wouldn't stop, you know, something being done. It's just, far too often. But anyway, that's a whole other...
No, the one thing I will say, I believe they changed the animation slightly, so it wasn't like directed at their temple and stuff. Again, I might be hazy in my remembering of stuff, but I'm sure like initially it was like right in the temple, and then I think they shot kind of above their heads kind of thing as well. It was I believe there was a slight animation change for Western audiences anyway. Now, what is actually, this calls me to check, this is actually rated as a Peggy 12. Now, for me, no Persona game should be anything less than a 15. Just because of the themes it deals with, and this is no exception. I don't think many 12-year-olds are developed enough mentally to handle a lot of the themes in this. The violence, the bad language is what it states for Peggy 12. Do you know what? Fine. I think we put too much age rating on violence and bad language because within reason, depending on the context, exposure isn't bad for that. You know, bad language isn't, for me, isn't an issue. Violence, certain levels of violence, you know, we do that with our kids all the time. You know, they watch wrestling, they watch Tom and Jerry, etc., 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 etc. It's not as big a deal as you think. Certain violence and levels of violence are a completely different thing. But the themes, we need to actually, when we do age ratings, concentrate more on themes rather than actions. And this is a great case. I wouldn't let anyone under 15 really play this one.
I totally agree. I think that it's those games are in a sweet spot for that kind of age group. That the
it's their age group that are playing.
They're the protagonists. And the protagonists are a mixture of being children mentally and being grown-ups mentally, and also physically as well. And 15 is the right age. I don't think any younger than that is appropriate, and I don't think they would understand the feelings and the emotions. It's something to play and look back on in retrospect or whilst you're going through it, not something to look forward to.
Now, what they could do, if like I think you could make a Persona game or Persona styled game aimed at children, take out those themes and make it a kiddie like type experience with the mechanics. I think that's totally possible. Now, I've said no one under 15 should play, right? So there will be context to this, so don't all write to your local MP straight away. But I'm playing Persona 4 Golden with Edith because she caught me playing the end of Persona 5 and she went, this is really good, can I play it with you? I was like, no, I'm finished, but we'll play Persona 4 together. Now, I'm skipping most of the story with Persona 4. It's like, no, skip. We're running through a dungeon. Skip. We're running through a dungeon. Because as a responsible parent, I take control of what my children see. I'm not going to go, well, this is a 12. And I look at most games aimed at a 12-year-old and go, do you know what? That's fine for Edith. That's not a problem at all. And I'll let her play it. Persona, I wouldn't. And I said, she's playing what I would consider now a highly sanitised version of Persona, where all she's doing is running through dungeons. And then passing it to me to actually do the battles. Because she doesn't understand the battles. But all the story is taken out of it. And I think there's scope to do a game like that. I think if you was to make a Kingdom Hearts using the Persona mechanics, there's a game that'd sell.
Yeah. No, I think that we're constantly banging the drum for having, different experiences set in the same universes and even with the same assets. I really want... I'm sorry, but I'm going to bang the drum again right now. We really need to start reusing game assets like much more frequently. So that I'm crafting new
reusing them,
experiences.
not stealing them.
No,
obviously.
Same company, not different company. Yeah. But anyway, no, that sounds really good. When I can find a little tiny slot where I can fit in another 40-hour game, I'll do it.
But yeah, who doesn't want to see Mickey put a gun to his head and pull the trigger, right?
I know, right?
What's next from you, Stu?
Well, very, very different in both tone and content, and that's the extremely cartoonish Final Vendetta, which is a scrolling beat-em-up, which the kids, I'm saying, with doing the inverted commas gesture, are calling belt scrollers, apparently. I don't know why. But
Belt scrollers?
Belt, yeah, because you're like on a conveyor belt, I think.
That's what my mum used to do when she hit me with her belt.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Scroll it across my backside.
That's right. And you probably deserved it, Bradley. I would not.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know why. I don't like it. But, I move with the times. I'm happy to use it. So it's a belt scroller, and it's very heavily stylized on Neo Geo scrolling fighting games. So it has really big sprites, tons and tons of colours, lots of animation, all the stuff that, is not the absolute key to a great beat 'em up, but it certainly marks it out as being what Final Fight obviously was trying to do, but struggle in a couple of places because obviously the hardware wasn't as good as the Neo Geo, but obviously Capcom did much better in terms of quality on most of their scrolling beat 'em ups. Anyway, that's a little tangent. The actual gameplay itself makes it the best Neo Geo scrolling fighting game that was never made. It's an absolute corker, and the reason it's so good is because not because of the stages, because the stages aren't fantastic. They're okay, but there's nothing in them that's particularly new or exciting. The only interesting thing about the stages is that it seems to be set in England. Like all of the street furniture and signs are all very, very English. I've not looked into it, but yeah, they must be English developers because it's like they're all English.
Okay.
And the tube is in there, all that sort of stuff, which is visually interesting. Although it's still, you've still got your dirty back street level and your train station level and on a train level or in a skyscraper level. But anyway, that's not the point. The point is that it's a really good fighting game, and it keeps in all the stuff from the latter Streets of Rage games. So you have dash, you have variant grapple and throw, so that it's not just like you have one type of throw. There's lots of mixing up. It's got the Streets of Rage 4 thing where you've got two types of special move. It's got, you can build up a special move bar, and then use a special move which is like Final Fight 3, which is on the SNES, the Super Famicom. As you can tell by how I'm talking, this is a genre I'm a pretty big fan of, and it does it really, really well. And it's got a secret source, which is a kind of like a third button, which is almost like a context sensitive thing. It does different things depending on what you're doing. So it can be a different kind of throw, a different kind of attack, a different thing to do in a special. It's like a modifier almost. So it does direct things, but it also has things that do modifiers to it. And it adds a complexity that's really great. And it's also got a block button, the game, and that adds a little bit more spice, and it allows there to be like a few more enemies on screen at once. And yeah, it's an absolute superb, belt scroller. It really is. And, it's better than Shredder's Revenge, which to me is astonishing. I never thought I'd say there's a better game than that's come out within the, 12 months of it. But yeah, there we are.
So, questions.
Go.
And these are kind of loaded because I said we know the answer, but hey, this is why we do this thing.
Oh, yeah.
One, just let you know, Yeah, it is set in the UK because it mentions quite a lot about it's the UK is known for its dance music scene, and this electrifying soundtrack complements all the action vinyl Vendetta has to offer in tremendous style. So yeah, it's UK based.
Yeah, soundtrack is amazing. Yeah, carry on, go on.
Now, obviously, it takes cues from games like Street Fighter, Final Fight, etc. Not Street Fighter, Streets of Rage, Final Fight, etc., etc. Can you do wanton violence to inanimate objects?
Not wanton, no. It does have boxes and barrels that you smash in the traditional style, and that you get food out of, including a sausage roll. So yeah, again, very English touch.
Has it got the traditional though?
It's got chicken, pizza.
Right, okay.
Yeah,
no, that's fine. It's got chicken.
Yeah,
that's fine.
Yeah. So
if you don't have chicken as a health item, then don't count.
Nope, I agree.
I don't care how serious your game is. Like, you've got to have chicken as a health item.
Yeah, chicken in a bin. Yeah.
Last of Us Part 3, chicken in a bin.
Yeah. Absolutely. Go on then. Next question.
How does the actual, can you do, the two-part combat? So, one of my favourite things always to do in Streets of Rage was to sort of walk up to, the person I was playing with and then sort of, vault over them or use them to hold you as you done, a kick-out and stuff like that as someone else. Can you do all those sorts of things with it?
I don't know, because I've only played it in single-player. Yeah.
Oh, well, we have to change that.
Yeah. You can do the invite thing where only one of you needs to.
Oh, it's got local remote play.
Not
thingy.
But yeah, it's got that thing where you only need one copy. Yeah.
Oh, we'll do that.
Yeah, we should do that.
That'll do. They decide whether I actually go and buy it as well because it's on my wish list. But
good.
I can't afford 20 quid on it at the moment, and I don't know if I want to spend 20 quid on it. Because it's a genre I don't mind, but it's not up there with my I must have this genres.
No, fair enough, understandable.
So yeah, we'll do that. We'll sort that for next week sometime, and then we'll report back on the co-op.
Yeah.
Yes. But it does look lovely, animation-wise. Actually, I'm looking at some of the GIFs and stuff at the moment, and it does look good. It looks like an actual a proper follow-up to Streets of Rage than Streets of Rage 4 does.
Yeah, in a way. Yeah. Yeah, because it's still in that. Yeah, it's in that 16-bit style, which obviously Streets of Rage 4 isn't. Yeah.
No, I do like the really HD stuff. It looks really, really good. But that's not Streets of Rage for me. That's its own thing. This looks more Streets of Rage than that does. And yeah, it looks cool. Also, female character. She's wearing shorts. Well done.
Yeah, there's no objectification of her in that. There are.
Well, she beat not her, no, but she's beating up someone that's just wearing panties and stockings. So
Yeah. That seems to be I don't know. I think you could generously say that it's a comment on these kind of games, but I think that's a bit of a stretch, to be honest.
But the female character, I will say, very impressed. Doesn't look, they've not gone for the Streets of Rage. Can you get a flash up her knickers as you're playing kind of thing?
Not at all, no.
She's dressed for combat, I would say, or at least on the streets.
Yep. Absolutely.
And one of the characters, is it meant to be an homage to Bebop and Rocksteady? Not one of the characters you play, one of the enemies. There's a big brute guy that's wearing a helmet with spikes on it that just reminds me of Bebop and Rocksteady.
Well, there's a couple of characters in other games that are similar as well.
So it's just an homage to that kind of character.
I think so, yeah.
Okay, fair enough. But yeah, it does look good. I can't wait to give that a go, actually.
Excellent. Cool. So, what have you got next?
I've got nothing next. I was going to talk about Civ, but I'm going to talk about how far in are we, Stu? How far in are we?
About 45 minutes.
45 minutes, right. We're going to give us to the hour and see what I get through here. So pick a number between 1 and 3, Stu.
2.
We're talking J.K. Rowling.
There is only one number between 1 and 3.
That's a good point.
But I know I took your point.
I know, but do you know what? I like the pettiness.
I know.
That's what I live for.
Technically correct. The best kind of correct. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. Now, J.K. Rowling, talking about technically correct, that's one thing J.K. Rowling definitely is not.
Nope.
So, Hogwarts Legacy comes out soon, and boy, is there a discourse around this game. Now, couple of caveats. I'm non-binary, as you know, Stu. And I've stated before, one of the reasons I don't consider myself trans is I don't have the courage, and I will continue to live a lie till the day I die, because I just do not have that courage now to do that and to put my kids through anything, like the nastiness that comes with it because of the likes of Glenna, J.K. Rowling and stuff like that. I just haven't got what it takes. But I would consider myself an ally to trans people. Now, I made a comment on a forum we both frequent that said, look, I don't care if you buy this game or not. If you want to buy the game because you want to enjoy the game and you want to ignore everything around it, I get it. I would love to be able just to enjoy video games and not care about what surrounds it. There's Ubisoft games I fancy playing. I won't play. I will stand by and not play them, even though I want to. I'd love to be to someone who goes, do you know what? I don't. I prefer to have fun. If you could do that, I'm jealous of you. There's no hatred. There's no... I don't think any less of you or anything like that for doing so. However, I stated that if you buy this game, you cannot call yourself an ally. Now, I'm not saying you don't support the rights of trans people or anything like that. You are not an ally, though. Because to me, an ally is someone who is willing to take those extra sacrifices. I equate buying this game and saying you're an ally to trans people as going to Anfield, singing Justice for the 97 in support of the Hillsborough victims, and then popping down the road or popping into another city and buying a copy of The Sun to read. You might support and believe and know that those fans are innocent, but you're not an ally because you're buying The Sun.
Yeah.
That's how I equate it. I'm not an ally of a lot of what are they called, people who protest for they want a better world. Not Greenpeace, but
Extinction Agenda.
Not Extinction Rebellion, but like overall, what are the people called who want to protect the Earth in general?
Tree huggers.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah,
hippies.
But basically, yeah, I fully support the cause. I think they're right in what they're saying. I think we've got to do more to save the world. I'm still going to eat meat. I like meat. I've got a fear of vegetables. I'm a 4-year-old bloody child when it comes to food at times. I'm not an ally. I support them and I believe in their cause. I'm not an ally. And I would never want to be considered an ally. And that's how I feel about people who would buy a game like this or go and buy whatever J.K. Rowling's next book is or watch whatever Glenna produces next, which will probably be nothing because no one wants to touch him with a shitty stick.
Yep.
But, you're not an ally. I get you might have kids and your kids come first. Still doesn't make you an ally. And stuff like that. Now, there's nothing wrong with not being an ally. There's nothing wrong with it whatsoever. Now, I've seen some trans people, and I'm not going to speak for them, who have said, basically, you're wrong for doing it, you're wrong for buying it, blah, 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 blah. I disagree with that because it's personal choice, and there's a lot of people that grew up with Harry Potter. Don't forget, a lot of the trans community grew up with Harry Potter as their strength for why they was able to sort of live the life they knew they wanted to live and who they actually were. Harry Potter was a big part of that. So they hurt because of this. They're hurting. So I understand some of their comments. Don't necessarily agree with the you're in the wrong for enjoying this stuff. But what needs to be said is a lot of people then started to equate this, and it's not just on the forum that I've seen this on Twitter, I've seen this all over the place, to buying iPhones or buying Nike trainers, or you might buy an Activision game or an Ubisoft game or an EA game or watch this franchise. I've still got Netflix again at the moment. And for me, there's a different line to have. So we'll use Netflix as an example. Netflix aren't actively trying to harm trans people. They're a major corporation, and they put on what they want to put on. Ricky Gervais is a transphobe. I will not watch Ricky Gervais now. That's me done with Ricky Gervais. He's a transphobe. He's a lot of other things as well. But he's I won't watch him. Now, should Netflix cancel him? Not cancel him, no. I don't believe, they should just actively give him carte blanche to do what he wants. But Netflix, as a corporation, probably do many, many wrong things, including allowing the likes of Ricky Gervais on there. But as a company, I don't think they're actively trying to harm trans people. J.K. Rowling is actively trying to harm trans people. And before, I'd have accepted the argument along the lines of, but what about the developers who are making the game? It's not all guys. It's not all J.K. Rowling, blah, blah, blah. And I would agree, yep, that's fine. Until J.K. Rowling, in the past couple of months, came out and said, when someone asks, how does she sleep at night? No, she's doing all this. And she basically came out with on large piles of cash. She looks at her royalty checks that come in. You are actively funding hate. You are actively funding somebody who wants to exterminate people. Yet you'll get others also around and go, you can't compare this to Hitler, because you see the argument, if Hitler made, I don't know, if Hitler made Elden Ring, for example, or funded Elden Ring, would you not buy that? I was like, well, yeah, no, I'd ignore that completely. Of course I would, because of Hitler's exterminating whole waves of people, or maybe even wanting to, if it depended on what point of Hitler's life you decide. And J.K. Rowling's doing the same. It is one of those comparisons that is absolutely equatable. What she wants is Hitler idealism. Sorry, not idolisation. She probably does idolise Hitler, but is idealism. That's what she wants. She wants a certain type of person to exist and other types of people not to exist. And that's the way it is.
Yes, absolutely true. And it is such a the bigger debate is very, very complicated. It really is. And ultimately everybody has to draw the line of where they think it's acceptable. But I would say that, how to put it? I think that that if you want to buy, Hogwarts Legacy, then you need to really, really think about, the fact that a lot of the money is going to go directly to her. That the publishing company, that the developers, they'll have all factored that into their process. Like, that she will have to pocket a lot of the money. They will know that it's still worth doing because they will make a lot of money off the game, like an astonishing amount of money. But they know that they won't get all the profit, which is quite uncommon. Most of the time, a studio will set up they will have their IP, and because they set up that IP, so let's say Sony Studios, they will receive practically all the money. Yet, not even oh god, who is it? Warner Brothers, isn't it? Not even Warner's will see all that money. They just know that they will profit off it. If you buy it, you've got to realise you're putting money in the pockets of a TERF, a transphobe. But not only that, like, in retrospect, so much of her writing is racist and bigoted in a way that I didn't even notice, until I saw the films. And then I was like, is that because the directors are making these characters look like stereotypes? And then, again, years later after that, you find out, no, she was, had control over the script, the ultimate say, so there's anti-Semitism in there, just all sorts of bad stuff. And if you pay for the game, you're directly platforming a transphobic person and a bigot. And if you know that and acknowledge it, you're educated on that, and you still buy the game because it doesn't have any of that content in it, then that's fine. Well, it's not, but I agree to disagree with you.
Do you?
Yeah. But the thing is, it's kind of like, I don't take the argument of like, oh, well, you must stop buying everything. Somebody used the example of, technology in phones and PCs, that goes to money goes to regimes that are despicable. And it's like, well, I would have to stop consuming completely if I was going to do that. Now, in a way, I'm speaking on other people's behalf here, because I try and buy secondhand as much as I can, like even new stuff. But I'm in a position where I can do that. Not everybody is. So you cannot blame people for participating in a consumer capitalist society that they are stuck in. They do. You only have freedom and autonomy to a certain degree, and very little wiggle room at that. So it's an important argument. I would say that the easiest thing to say that I say on a moral level is, if you've been educated and you know that the artistic creator of that product actively funds their bigotry with what you're doing. So it can be Andrew Taint, as I like to call him. It can be anybody like that. If the money's going into their pocket, then you should stop if you possibly can. That's my personal moral feeling. I wouldn't impose it on people. But that's how I feel. Buying stuff that has a tangential link to bad regimes or bad countries or bad people you can't drive yourself insane with that.
No, you're 100% right. So, I've taken the decision to not buy a game that I really wanted before its release, and that's Cultist Simulator, because Alexis Kennedy, who was majorly involved, I don't know if it was his game or whether he was the lead writer, lead developer, whatever it was, but he was involved in a major way with it. Basically was accused and I believe proven to be exploitative. So I decided, right, well, it's a small indie title. He's directly involved. It's his game. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to buy that game. I'm not supporting him. Whereas he was also involved with the Sunless Sea, Sunless Skies, Fallen London type games. Yeah. But he's been moved on since then. I will buy those. He may still get small royalties from those, but they've moved him on, and it's separate from him now. Do you know what? There could be someone working on, I don't know, Tetris Effect. You know how much I love Tetris Effect. There could be someone working on that who is a horrible, misogynistic, racist, sexual abuser, but he's working somewhere down the chain. That's not the same as J.K. Rowling at the head of the table being the one who you're punishing. That's someone who's down the line. They're reprehensible. I don't agree with them, but you can't. That banning yourself from or trying to stop that game being purchased is not right because of one person down the chain. Now everyone keeps going about developers won't get paid. They won't get paid. They won't get paid. They have been paid. They do get paid for the work they're doing. And trust me, if a corporation like Warner Brothers wants to find a reason not to pay them bonuses, they will find a reason. Such as, they might fall 1 point short of a Metacritic score or something stupid like that. So they will find their reason not to pay them bonuses. They do still get paid for the work they have done or are doing because they have to get a flat rate. If a company's not doing that for them, then maybe take a stand against that company as well for those people. It would help them a hell of a lot. But yeah, the J.K. Rowling thing is disgraceful. It said phones, you can't equate it to your phones and stuff because you need a phone in today's age. You can't go completely off grid unless you go completely off grid. And I mean, self-sufficient, you're not doing anything other than living off your own farmed land. And at which point video games aren't an issue. So, but you need a phone. Now, I've got apps I need for my visual impairment, and they won't work on a lot of Android phones because they're just not up to date enough. And a lot of them, I've been told, are really only beneficial on Apple devices. Now, so I'm due a new phone. I can't buy second hand because I can't afford couple of £100 up front. So we will get my next phone will be as a contract renewal because it's the only way we can afford it. End up paying probably 3 times as much money, but hey, that's what life's like when you're poor.
Yeah. Poverty trap.
Yeah, the whole backwards thing of, you charge them more for loans or whatever and whatever and whatever you have to. Anyway, that's another story. I can't not have a phone. And unfortunately, my choices are limited to 3 or 4 different corporations, each of which probably uses a sweatshop in China or somewhere, and you can't avoid that. So there are things you can't avoid. Now, if you want to take a stand against Apple and not get Apple products, you might go to an alternatives. But I dare say if you dug, you will find issues with those. You find issues with Samsung. You might go, I'm not wearing Nike, I'm going to wear, I don't know, Asics. I dare say if you dug enough, you'd find some corporate skullduggery there as well. Everywhere you look, there's something. And there is no ethical consumption in capitalism. Put that on a T-shirt. I'm sure it already is. And you just you've got to take your own personal stand. And as I said, I will never judge anyone for liking Harry Potter, for buying into Harry Potter, for continuing to buy into Harry Potter. That's you. I can't do it. I appreciate people that will take that stand. They are allies. You are not an ally. You can support me, but you're not an ally. But what I didn't appreciate when I did come, it was being told that almost my view wasn't valid by some people, and that hurt because I'm someone. I wouldn't say I'm directly affected as much as people who are trans, but I'm in that community. I'm non-binary. And J.K. Rowling stated non-binary people are in that category for her as well. So I am to a degree affected by what happens, by how much influence she has. And it's not right.
No, it's not. No. It's just in a terrible state with transphobia, and I am a massive ally. If I ever know that anyone's to the point where I won't reread any Harry Potter, I won't rewatch any films, even if the money isn't going anywhere. I'm done.
Oh yeah, for me it's tainted now. I won't watch it. I won't. Again, my kids might want to watch it and stuff like that, and it's out there. If it's on Sky TV or ITV or whatever, fine, I'll let them watch it. If we've got any of the books still laying around in a cupboard somewhere, then sure, and they really want to read it, fine. Me, it's tainted. I don't want to watch it because I know I'll be sitting there going, you can bleep this, Stu, by the way. I'll be sitting there going, JK's a cunt, JK's a cunt, JK's a cunt. Rowling, that is, not Simmons. But just in case. But yeah, it's unwatchable for me now. Same as a lot of Ricky Gervais stuff. Can't. It's tainted for me.
Yeah.
The It Crowd, Father Ted. I loved Father Ted. Tainted. I can't watch it. But again, I get some people will still be able to watch the old stuff because they can separate, but will be allies by not supporting the new stuff. That's all good. That's all really, really good. But I want to end this positively by saying, look, all this stuff, J.K. Rowling, Graham Linehan and stuff like that, this hatred, it's a massively vocal minority. It's one of those cases where the old adage of there's a silent minority, it couldn't be any more true. Because 99% of the people in this world probably live their lives daily without worrying or knowing about any of this stuff. And that's kind of good.
Yeah.
I would love to be that 99% who doesn't worry about this stuff, and I envy them. I really, really, really do. But that's good. They don't care who's trans or who's not. And I've never encountered anyone kicking off at someone being in a wrong bathroom or anything. And by the way, for anyone who complains about that, disabled toilets are all non-binary toilets.
That whole toilet thing is the most ridiculous. This is like straight bananas. Yeah, it's pathetic. But yeah, no, I agree with everything you said. And we'll just here MHG just continue to be trans allies till the day we die. And you're safe with us, definitely.
Which, depending on J.K. Rowling, one of us could be gone next week. Who knows?
Yeah, she's got a lot of money and a lot of power. Let's just be careful. No, I don't care.
And actually, two just finishing on a really positive note. This is going to take one more minute, I swear, Stu. So, Jay Briscoe, the wrestler, died last week, as I said, and he is a great example of you can make mistakes, but you can make up for them. He apologised for homophobic tweets and actually educated himself. And we can all do that. That's someone we can learn from. You don't have to be the perfect person. We all make mistakes. I've made mistakes. I dare say Stu's made a mistake or two in his life. He'd once agreed to sign up to this podcast, So, we've all made mistakes. It's what you do after those mistakes. Be a Jay Briscoe. Don't be a J.K. Rowling. I'm going to shut up there.
Well said. Yeah, no, I totally agree. You got to give people the opportunity to change, and you've got to, as long as they demonstrate that change in their actions, then that's absolutely acceptable, because we can't expect to know everything. Science hasn't known everything. Science is behind and understands that gender is a construct, and that people have, well, it's too complex to get into here, but the science...
Especially as I've already wrapped myself up, Stu.
Absolutely. I'm doing
You're
it now.
You're baiting me.
I know, right? Anyway, I'll shut up now. You can do the up now. So, yeah. We continue to be trans allies, always will be. Follow all of our content on the socials. Visit our website, see what's on there. There's plenty of good stuff, including also links to our reviews and videos that are on YouTube. But we also have a very active Discord that you're welcome to join. If you really want to, you can give us some money on coffee or join our Patreon. But apart from all the begging, until next time, stay safe and stay sane.